My name is Lendiuk, and I would like to present you the paper, Method of Forming the Context of Advertising the Target Audience Based on Associative Rules, Learning by Khrystyna, Lipianina-Honcharenko, Lendiuk, Anatoliy, Sachenko, and Jacek Wołoszyn. The value of advertising is crucial for any company because only this can make people aware of the company product, and doing so can create you a good opportunity to sell it to customers. The manual work of a large number of advertisements, especially text, is extremely expensive. Therefore, it is worth considering how to generate this text automatically. In this regard, we can assume that the development of a method of forming the context of advertising and target audience based on learning associative rules is relevant and can increase the effectiveness of advertising and thus reduce the cost of online advertising of higher education institutions. Given the complexity of modern digital advertising ecosystems, there are many studies describing the impact of advertising contents on social networks on attracting customers, using data from Facebook in medicine, psychology, sociology, politics, and others. Research 24 and 25 from sources of this paper provides an understanding of social networks for higher education institutions such as Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. Instead, a model is proposed that is able to use its targeting strategy in accordance with the received feedback. This model uses the Thompson sampling algorithm applied to the user space. In 17, the study analyzed the various needs of customers focusing on online advertising based on method of classification, segmentation, and clustering. In 13, the model of selection of the optimal amount of advertising on various internet resources is analyzed in order to achieve the desired coverage of the target audience. Article 18 proposes the generation of advertising text based on keywords that take into account product information. The above mentioned works mostly analyze the action of users on online advertising. Therefore, a goal of this paper is to develop a method of forming the context of advertising and target audience based on the teaching of associative rules. The novelty of the work is the formation of the most profitable in the economic aspect text in the free economic zone advertising and the corresponding target groups, which will increase the effectiveness of the advertising campaign based on learning the rule of associations. To reduce time spent on the formation of advertising context of the target audience, the authors have developed a method of forming the context of advertising on the target audience based on the teaching and associative rules. The proposed method is illustrated on the figure 1 and is represented by the following steps. Step 1. Conduct a survey of students. It's block number 1. It is important to determine the gender characteristics of the respondents, as this will make it possible to determine the target audience in the future. Then convert to CSV. Block number 2. Step 2. Calculation of support for each individual element. Block 3. Support is simply the number of transactions during which a particular product or combination of products occurs. Step 3. Conversion of data into a list. It's block number 4. Step 4. Block number 5. Learning associative rules based on a priori method. Step 4.1. Finding support for frequent sets of elements. It's block number 5.1. Search for pairs of items that appears most often in pairs. The a priori algorithm ignores all pairs that contain any of the rare elements. It's block number 5.2. Formation of rules, block 5.3. The most frequent set of elements converting into associated rules in the format, it's element X becomes element Y. Step 4.3. Calculating the confidence. Confidence shows the percentage of cases in which this rule applies. Step 4.3. Elevator calculations, block 5.5. Raising a rule is an indicator of effectiveness, which indicates the strength of the relationships between the products in a rule. Raising the rule is determined by the following equation. In this equation, P is the probability of frequency of combination of elements in the generated rule. Step 5. Output of resulting rules. It's block number 6. And step 5, creating the context of advertising and target audience. It's block 7 for higher education institutions in the basis of the received rules. The Python language was chosen to conduct the method of forming the context of advertising and target audience based on the teaching of associative rules. The input data is used a survey of students majoring in computer science regarding admissions. 152 students took part in the survey and answered 10 questions. All students' feedbacks are in CSV file. The sample is representative as the survey was conducted among students majoring in computer science who themselves have recently been faced with the choice of where to enter, so the feedback is most informative for this type of advertising. Before starting the analysis of the rules, first determine the frequency distribution of the elements in this table. The chart shows that the majority of male respondents, as well as the highest number of answers, said that they found information on their own in social networks majoring of computer science. After the converting of the dataset into the desired list, we will display the results, namely the rules, which in the future will allow to form the context of advertising of target group. For example, therefore, after starting the algorithm was generated, counting set of items of length 1, counting set of sets of the item of length 2, and based on experimentally significant parameter of the algorithm, the generated rules were filtered. We used, for forming of rules, we use parameters and produce different rules. You can look at this table on different rules. We form rule, and this rule has some contents. To compare the effectiveness of the generated advertising context based on the teaching of associative rules, a comparative experiment was conducted on Facebook on the business page, Computer Science of ZUNU, which is West Ukrainian National University. The first option was advertised, and you can see it's variant 1, it's old version of our advertising, and variants from 1 to 5, which is new variant of our advertising. The greatest interaction with the video advertising of Facebook was made for males in the age category from 18 to 25 and 35, 55. Male and female clients in category of from 40 to 55 years has the greatest interactions with the computer-sized business page. Table presents a comparison of the effectiveness of the generated advertising contents based on the teaching of associative rules in the period from May 4, 2021 and May 31, 2021, with the contact options including the old version of advertising. Table showed that all variants of the new ad gave improved results. The result indicator shows how many times customers have been in contact with the ad. Advertising performed best in the option 3, set figure. Option 3 was the cheapest advertising. It performed 100% better than option 0. Option 3 performed best in all indicators. Namely, the coverage is 90% based at the option 1 and 52% better in terms of the number of impressions. It is also reduced the price of the result by 90% in option 3. Thus, the method of forming the advertising content of higher education institution based on the teaching of associative rules allows to increase the effectiveness of advertising on social networks by at least 23% and reduce the price by up to 90%. The authors believe that increase the number of student surveys will increase the quality of teaching associative rules, respectively get the best keywords to content formation, and thus increase the effectiveness of advertising and reduce its costs. Unlike analogs, developed method of forming the context of advertising and target audience based on learning associative rules will form rules of use the respondents answer to form advertising context and determine the target group. Developed method of forming of contents of advertising and target audience based on the teaching of associative rules make it possible to increase the effectiveness of advertising and thus reduce the cost of online advertising of higher education institutions. Also, the developed method will allow to form rules between the answer of respondents for the formation of advertising content and the definition of target group. To implement the developed method, we used a survey of students majoring in computer science regarding admissions. 152 students took part in the survey and answered 10 questions. According to the results, the effectiveness of advertising of social networks increased by at least 23% and the price decreased by 90%. The authors believe that increasing the number of students surveys will increase the quality of teaching associative rules, respectively get the best keywords for content formation and thus increase the effectiveness of the advertising and reduce its costs. Thank you.